Sunwoo and Tae-oh have been married for more than 10 years. And even now, Tae-oh still acts deeply in love with his wife. One morning, while Sunwoo gets ready for work, she notices a lipstick that clearly does not belong to her. Tae-oh calmly explains that he bought it himself, because he heard that applying balm protects the lips in dry weather. Sunwoo places the lipstick on the bed and walks into the bathroom, staring at the lipstick stain on her hand. She laughs at herself bitterly, thinking that if her husband did not love her anymore, he would not have treated her so gently just moments ago. As Sunwoo prepares to leave for work, Tae-oh puts a scarf around her neck and gives her an unexpected deep kiss that even makes their son Joon-young blush. Later at the hospital, while Sunwoo changes into her uniform, she notices a long strand of hair stuck to her scarf. When she looks closely, she realizes the hair is brown and clearly not hers. Her calm heart suddenly becomes restless, and she spends the entire day unable to focus on her patients. On the way home after picking up Joon-young, Sunwoo meets a young woman with long brown hair who introduces herself as Tae-oh's secretary. She warmly thanks Sunwoo and explains that Tae-oh gave her this job and that it allows her to leave work early so she can take care of her child. While listening, Sunwoo keeps glancing at the woman's hair, wondering if she is the same person whose hair she found on the scarf. Later that evening, Sunwoo anxiously waits for Tae-oh to return. When he finally comes home, he is carrying a bottle of red wine, a type he has never drunk before. He casually eats the braised ribs Sunwoo prepared, acting so natural that no one would suspect anything is wrong. Meanwhile, Sunwoo's mind feels completely confused, so she packs some food and goes to speak with her neighbor, Ko Yerim. When she enters Yerim's home, she notices that Yerim now has long brown hair too. Yerim laughs and says she simply followed the new trend. She then takes out a lip balm to retouch her makeup, and Sunwoo freezes. The lipstick is the exact same one she found in her bedroom. Sunwoo's heart sinks, and she quickly makes an excuse to leave. Afterwards, while Tae-oh showers, she secretly checks his phone. There is no password, and she only finds family photos and ordinary pictures. Everything looks so clean that she begins to wonder if she is overthinking everything. The next day, she talks to her colleague Mung-suk about her fears, but Mung-suk says she is too sensitive. Still, Sunwoo cannot calm down, so she decides to leave work early and follow Tae-oh. She watches him buy a bouquet and a cake before he drives away. Sunwoo follows him to a nursing home on the mountain. She rushes inside and finds Tae-oh visiting his mother. Tae-oh is shocked to see her, and afterwards he explains that he comes home late because his mother's condition has worsened, and he visits her every day. His explanation sounds sincere, and Sunwoo feels guilty for doubting him. However, before leaving, she stops at the front desk to ask about her mother-in-law's treatment. The nurse calmly says that Tae-oh has not visited in months. Sunwoo feels as if lightning strikes through her body. At that moment, she becomes almost certain that Tae-oh is hiding something far beyond her imagination. Later that night, Tae-oh says he has to attend an event organized by a company president. Fortunately, the president's wife, Hyo-jung, is one of Sunwoo's patients, and once he invited her to the event, Sunwoo decides to go with him. Tae-oh's face stiffens for a moment, but he has no excuse. At the party, Tae-oh stands quietly in the corner, acting like a nameless director trying to start a business, and no one pays attention to him. Sunwoo steps forward with confidence and introduces herself as the hospital dean, quickly easing the awkward situation and helping the staff solve a small problem. Hyo-jung warmly leads Sunwoo inside the hall and praises her presence. At that moment, Sunwoo suddenly notices something that freezes her heart. The red wine on the table is the same brand Tae-oh brought home that night, and as she stands there, her eyes slowly drift toward Hyo-jung's long brown hair. At that point, she can no longer calm her mind, so she quietly steps out to the balcony to catch her breath. While she stands there, she unexpectedly runs into another patient, Hyun-seo. A few days earlier, Hyun-seo asked Sunwoo to prescribe sleeping pills, but Sunwoo refused because she worried about her condition. Now, Sunwoo apologizes, but Hyun-seo does not seem upset at all. Instead, she asks if Sunwoo is troubled by something. After days of feeling completely alone, meeting someone who shows real concern breaks Sunwoo's restraint, and she quietly shares her worries. She forces a bitter smile, still unsure if she is overreacting. However, Hyun-seo says the situation is not simple and tells her that if the husband is cheating, the only real solution is to find proof and divorce. But Sunwoo knows that marriage is not a gay game. Leaving would affect her career and, more importantly, Joon-young's entire life. That night, she lies awake, her mind filled with fear and anger, until she finally gives up on sleep and begins searching online about divorce laws and property division. The next morning, she makes a painful decision and meets Hyun-seo again, asking her to secretly follow Tae-oh. Later that day, Hyun-seo follows his car to a private villa, and a few minutes later, she sees Tae-oh come out with a young woman by his side. She reports everything to Sunwoo, and hearing that the woman has long brown hair, shatters what little hope Sunwoo has left. Hyun-seo reminds her that the answer may be hidden in the trunk of Tae-oh's car, so Sunwoo should check what he keeps inside. Soon, Tae-oh's birthday arrives, and Sunwoo prepares to celebrate with his company president Byung-gyu's family. While escorting the president outside to welcome the guests, she secretly opens the trunk of Tae-oh's car, and there, she finds a second phone hidden behind the tools. When she unlocks it, a picture of a young woman appears. It is Dak-young, the president's younger daughter. Her hands shake as she opens the gallery and sees countless photos of Tae-oh and Dak-young smiling like a couple. Even worse, she notices Yerim and Myung-suk appearing in several photos, which suddenly explains why her coworker tried to calm her doubts and why her neighbor acted so friendly. She realizes that everything is planned and that the people around her are covering for Tae-oh while he builds a new family in secret. For a moment, Sunwoo imagines herself holding a scissor, walking toward her husband, and plunging the blade into his chest while the crowd screams and her son calls out for her. When she blinks, the image disappears because it is only in her mind. In reality, Tae-oh stands in front of everyone, beginning his birthday speech. He talks about how all his achievements are thanks to his wife, which makes Dak-young's expression stiff with anger. Soon, the guests cheer for the couple and tell him to kiss his wife, and Sunwoo feels her rage burning because she knows the real reason he avoids her. She leans forward, lifts his collar, and kisses him, provoking Dak-young and drawing everyone's applause. In the chaos, Dak-young's anger clearly shows, but no one notices. Everyone focuses on Tae-oh's staged affection. Afterwards, Tae-oh tries to hold Sunwoo's hand in front of the guests, trying to protect the image of their marriage rather than her wounded heart. When the party ends, Sunwoo returns home and packs her belongings. At the same time, Myung-suk arrives to drop off Joon-young. As soon as she senses something is wrong, she begins gently testing Sunwoo with questions to see whether she has discovered the affair. Sunwoo is too exhausted and tells her that she knows about Tae-oh's affair, then asks her to leave. Later, Sunwoo walks to her son's room and sees his calendar, where Joon-young marks tomorrow as the day he and his father are supposed to go camping, something he has been excited about for weeks. Sunwoo promises herself that no matter how broken everything feels, she will convince Tae-oh to take their son, because Joon-young should not suffer for their mistakes. That night, Tae-oh comes home drunk, too intoxicated to notice Sunwoo's calm but broken expression. He carelessly drops his shoes and falls onto the bed without a second thought, while Sunwoo sits in the corner of the room in deep thought. The next morning, Sunwoo clings to the last shred of hope and asks Tae-oh directly if he is hiding anything from her, secretly wishing he might finally confess and return fully to her. Instead, Tae-oh's greedy and hypocritical response shatters her hope completely, leaving her feeling hollow and betrayed. The following day, she goes to work in a daze and discovers that Dak-young has arrived at the hospital, requesting her help to see a doctor. Sunwoo does not blame her, but quietly asks how many men Dak-young is dating. Surprisingly, Dak-young answers honestly, admitting she is dating a wealthy man whose wife does not know about her. She even explains that he sees marriage as a mere formality, and if it were not for his child and financial responsibilities, he would have married her long ago. Hearing this, Sunwoo's emotions explode, but she controls herself and conducts a pregnancy test, which confirms that Dak-young is pregnant. Sunwoo mockingly asks if the wealthy man is the father, leaving Dak-young shocked. Overwhelmed, Dak-young rushes out, leaving Sunwoo with a sinking feeling she cannot shake, too afraid to imagine what will come next. Later, in the car, Sunwoo cries, knowing her family is about to break apart. She can only trust Hyun-seo, who has always been honest with her. She visits him, only to find her boyfriend In-ju mistreating him. So she intervenes, striking In-ju and giving Hyun-seo a chance to escape. Later, while tending to Hyun-seo's wound, Sunwoo asks why she does not leave In-ju. Hyun-seo explains that her boyfriend is usually good to her, and she believes that with patience and effort, she can change him. Sunwoo falls silent, realizing that despite their different circumstances, their fates are strangely similar. Both are struggling to protect what they value most. She reflects on whether she should still try to save her marriage for the sake of her son. That same day, Joon-young's wish to play in the baseball game with his father is finally fulfilled, and the family returns home for a peaceful and joyful dinner, a brief moment of calm for their son's sake. Sunwoo decides to give Tae-oh one more chance, determined to let him answer honestly, believing she can forgive him if he admits his mistakes. Yet, despite having clear evidence of his betrayal, Tae-oh continues to hide the truth and swears he loves only her, breaking Sunwoo's heart completely. Determined to face the truth, Sunwoo sends a message through Myung-suk, telling Tae-oh that Dak-young is pregnant. When Myung-suk calls him and tells him about Dak-young's pregnancy, he freezes in shock. Before he can react, Sunwoo appears in front of him. Unable to hide his panic, he rushes out, proving that even in confrontation, his actions reveal his true priorities. The next day, Tae-oh goes to Dak-young's apartment and confesses his love, saying he cannot live without her. Dak-young then asks him to prove his commitment. Tae-oh admits he will try to manage both relationships, leaving Dak-young shattered. At night, when Sunwoo returns home, Tae-oh is already there and, in an unusual gesture, cooks for her. As always, she ties an apron around him, and he tells her that her worries are over and that from now on, he will treat her well. Hearing this, Sunwoo truly believes that Tae-oh has finally chosen her, but it is only her misunderstanding. That night, Tae-oh gets out of bed to answer a call from Dak-young, who warned him to be available anytime. Meanwhile, Sunwoo feels the weight of his betrayal crushing her, and she decides to consult her lawyer about a divorce. The next day, she visits her lawyer, Dong-seok, and he advises her that if she wants to win, she must collect undeniable evidence of Tae-oh's infidelity, ideally videos showing his relationship with Dak-young. Just imagining such a scene makes Sunwoo feel nauseous, and she hurriedly leaves the lawyer's office, only to bump into Dak-young, who is buying a marriage certificate. Dak-young casually tells her that she plans to have the child because Tae-oh promises he will divorce within 2 months, and she adds that they have known each other for 2 years. Sunwoo laughs bitterly, realizing that her husband has been living a double life for years, yet she only discovers it now. After taking the lawyer's advice, Sunwoo checks Tae-oh's financial records and discovers that he mortgaged the house 3 years ago and even used the insurance money she saved for Joon-young. Panicking, she rushes home and discovers that Tae-oh has taken out a loan in her name. She also finds records of her mother-in-law's hospital expenses and the purchase of an expensive bag, and she remembers seeing Dak-young with that same bag. At that moment, Tae-oh sends her a text saying he will be working late. Determined to gather evidence, Sunwoo drives to Tae-oh's office. From outside, she sees him talking through the window with a woman. Her first instinct is to rush in, but she stops herself, hesitating at the thought of confirming her worst fears. Finally, she steadies herself, turns on her camera, and walks toward his office. During those few steps, countless memories and emotions flash through her mind, and she braces herself for the scene she might witness. When she enters, she finds Tae-oh genuinely working late, not with another woman, and she is caught off guard, unsure where to place her awkward hands and feet. Embarrassed, she quickly finds an excuse to leave, her mind racing with conflicting thoughts. She then visits her mother-in-law, Jung-sim, and realizes she already knows about Tae-oh's affair, but keeps quiet. Afraid Sunwoo will divorce him and take Joon-young away. This only angers Sunwoo more. She discovers that Tae-oh borrowed money against their house and even took out an insurance policy meant for Joon-young. That is when she decides she will divorce him. Jung-sim breaks down and begs her not to leave Tae-oh before she dies. But Sunwoo calmly tells her to stay alive, knowing Tae-oh would suffer most if she passed away. Later, when Tae-oh visits his mother, she passes away, and he collapses at her bedside, crying uncontrollably. Watching him, Sunwoo feels her heart break. The next day at the funeral, when the president's family arrives, Tae-oh quickly straightens up, fixes his hair, and acts perfectly composed, greeting them with a servile smile. Sunwoo feels a surge of anger at his hypocrisy. That night, Myung-suk advises Sunwoo that once she divorces, she will always be labeled a divorced woman, while Tae-oh will be able to continue his life without facing the same judgment. Her words leave Sunwoo speechless. Later, Sunwoo sees Tae-oh on the phone outside and follows him, discovering him sitting in Dak-young's car. Watching them together, relaxed and laughing, She finally breaks down emotionally, realizing it is time to end this damaged marriage. The next day, Hyun-soo pretends to be Dakyung's new neighbor and visits her with a small gift. Dakyung notices the pregnancy book in her hand and warmly invites her inside. They chat comfortably, and later, Hyun-soo calls Sunwoo to tell her that she has become friends with Dakyung. Meanwhile, Sunwoo goes to Tae-oh's car and opens the trunk to look for evidence, but it is empty. Suddenly, she feels an umbrella appear over her head in the heavy rain. Jae-hyuk, the husband of her neighbor Ko Yarim and the accountant for Tae-oh's company, is holding it. Jae-hyuk tells her that he knows everything about Tae-oh and Dakyung's affair, as well as the hidden transfer documents. He admits he has admired Sunwoo for years and says that if she accepts his request, he can help her recover the documents. Sunwoo rejects him and continues relying on Hyun-soo to gather evidence. Following Sunwoo's instructions, Hyun-soo waits downstairs and records a clear video of Tae-oh going up to Dakyung's apartment. She adjusts the camera angle, counts the steps on the staircase, and prepares to film him, leaving the next day to complete the evidence. But just as she is about to go upstairs, a voice behind her startles her. It is In-ju, her abusive ex-boyfriend, the same man who reported her in the past. He has witnessed everything she recorded. Hyun-soo tries to avoid him, but In-ju suddenly rings the doorbell at Dakyung's house. When she tries to stop him, he pins her against the wall so she cannot move. The next day at the hospital, In-ju confronts Sunwoo in her office. Using Hyun-soo's recordings as leverage, he demands money to keep quiet and tells her to prepare 30 million won within a week. Later, Hyun-soo arrives at Dakyung's door with bruises on her face. Shocked, Dakyung asks what happened. Hyun-soo tells her she suffers from domestic violence and hints that she ended her pregnancy because the father was abusive and did not love the child. This creates emotional closeness between them. Feeling comfortable, Dakyung begins complaining that Sunwoo is shameless, knowing her husband is cheating yet refusing to divorce. She does not realize that Hyun-soo's phone is connected to Sunwoo, and every word she says is being heard clearly. Dakyung confides that Tae-oh has long lost interest in Sunwoo and only has physical relations with her occasionally to fulfill his duties. Hearing this pushes Sunwoo into a reckless idea. She puts on heavy makeup and accepts Jae-hyuk's invitation to his company dinner. The next day, Sunwoo walks straight toward President Byung-yu's house. A panicked Tae-oh rushes there and tries to stop her, but Sunwoo has already rung the doorbell and the president and his wife welcome them inside. The grandeur of the house impresses Sunwoo, and she praises their taste. When she proposes visiting the second floor, Tae-oh nervously protests that it is private, but the president waves off his concern. Sunwoo's calculated movements immediately draw Dakyung's attention. To provoke her further, Sunwoo deliberately drops a vase, shattering it on the floor. Dakyung is stunned, while everyone else remains confused. Meanwhile, the president stays unaware, hosting the gathering as if nothing is happening, not realizing that a secret war is quietly unfolding between his daughter and Sunwoo. The atmosphere in the room instantly freezes, and when Sunwoo calls Dakyung a homewrecker, Dakyung can no longer hold back. She pulls her hand free and strikes Sunwoo on the head, then tries to hit her again until the president steps in and stops her. Overwhelmed, Dakyung collapses to the floor, crying, while the president and his wife stare down with cold, unyielding expressions that show no sympathy. Afterwards, Sunwoo leaves the room, and Tae-oh, filled with rage and panic, runs after her. He demands to know why she came at such an important moment when he is on the verge of securing the president's investment and plans to sign everything soon. He tells her she ruined everything, and while he claims he is in love, he insists he never planned to leave his family. To Sunwoo, it sounds like a twisted excuse with only one answer: divorce. She calmly tells him that Joon-young already knows the truth and that he will lose both his son and everything he owns. Soon after, Tae-oh is thrown out of the president's house and sits on the roadside like a stray dog, feeling lost. Meanwhile, Dakyung runs to him in worry, no longer caring about the investment deal. She only wants to ask one question: are you with me because of money? When Tae-oh says their feelings are real, she tells him to put out his cigarette because it is bad for the baby she is carrying. This shocks Tae-oh, since not long ago she said she would abort the child and walk away. Now she clearly chooses him, holding his hand and promising that he can leave his family and be with her. Tae-oh hugs her tightly, as if she is the only thing keeping him alive. But Dakyung understands her victory is not complete, because Tae-oh admits that without her father's investment, it will be hard for him to continue as a director. Afterwards, a knock comes at their door, and when Tae-oh opens it, a man hands him the divorce papers Sunwoo has sent. The next day at work, Sunwoo walks through the hospital, feeling the weight of every stare. Her colleagues ask her to check the news, and when she looks online, she finds rumors claiming she has mental issues, disrespects patients, and is unfit to be vice dean. She calls her lawyer, Dong-sok, who explains it is most likely Tae-oh, because he wants to destroy her reputation before the custody battle. Then Sunwoo is called to the dean's office. When she steps inside, she sees Tae-oh already there, telling the dean that Sunwoo manipulated a patient into recording his location. The dean, worried about the hospital's image, harshly criticizes her, while Tae-oh keeps pushing the topic so he can take custody of Joon-young. He continues provoking her without stopping, and at that moment, Sunwoo, unable to control her anger anymore, slaps him. She never expected that the man she lived with for so many years could become so cruel and shameless. Shocked, she leaves the room, feeling the pain of their broken past. Afterwards, in the parking lot, Sunwoo gets into her car while Tae-oh chases her. She suddenly twists her steering wheel and hits his car, forcing him to stop as she drives away. Sunwoo then goes to Joon-young's school, walks into the classroom, and silently takes her son. When Tae-oh arrives later, the teacher explains that Sunwoo already took him. Sunwoo drives wildly, frightening Joon-young, who keeps asking where they are going. She stays silent, throws her phone out the window, and takes him to a quiet lake surrounded by steep ground. With a heavy voice, she tells him that his father betrayed them, and from now on, he will live only with her. But Joon-young keeps saying he wants to see his father and talk to him. At that moment, something inside Sunwoo breaks completely, and she pushes her son toward the edge of the cliff. Later, when the police search the area where Joon-young disappeared, they only find a broken phone. A terrible fear rises in Tae-oh's chest because he cannot imagine what Sunwoo might do, and he rushes home in panic. Sunwoo returns home in panic, and Tae-oh is already there, demanding to know where Joon-young is. She coldly replies that he will never see his son again. At that moment, Tae-oh's mind twists in fear and anger, and he convinces himself that Sunwoo has killed their child. In a burst of rage, he grabs her by the throat and throws her against the TV cabinet, leaving her on the floor, crying in pain, while he looks as if he is about to collapse. Meanwhile, the door slowly opens, and Joon-young walks inside. He freezes at the sight of his mother bleeding on the floor and his father standing over her. He cannot believe the man he once loved has become someone so terrifying. Tae-oh stands shocked when he sees his son alive, and in that moment, he realizes that Sunwoo planned everything to make him see what he has become. A few days later, Sunwoo appears with bruises on her face and signs the divorce papers, finally forcing Tae-oh out of the house and ending their broken marriage. Time passes, and 2 years later, Tae-oh receives investment from Byungju and becomes extremely successful with his film in Seoul. Now, he arrives at a luxurious villa with his new family. Workers unload furniture while he, as a famous director, walks around like a king returning home, already planning a grand party to celebrate his comeback. Meanwhile, Hyo-jung arrives, surrounded by wealthy people whose respect has returned because of her son-in-law's fame. She proudly talks about how the same nobles who once insulted her daughter now beg to be invited to the party. Holding a stack of invitations, she walks through the city and passes right by Sunwoo, ignoring the shocked looks from the rich crowd as if Sunwoo did not exist. At the same time, Tae-oh drives to Joon-young's school, where students stare with envy because he is one of the most popular directors in the country. Afterwards, he meets Joon-young at an expensive restaurant, hands him a brand new baseball bat, and warmly invites him to the party that night, promising that the bat is signed by a famous baseball champion. Meanwhile, Sunwoo returns home and finds an invitation from her ex-husband. On the cover is a dazzling white wedding dress, and inside is a photo of their daughter, Jenny. At that moment, her phone rings. Joon-young's teacher tells her he never came to school that day. Sunwoo panics and starts searching everywhere for her son. Soon, she runs into Tae-oh, who is driving Joon-young back home. Seeing him, she feels deep resentment, because to her, he looks like a shameless man begging for affection after destroying everything. Later that night, Joon-young tells Sunwoo that he does not want to attend his father's party, and she feels relieved. But when he returns to his room, he looks at the baseball bat and remembers what his father said about the champion's signature, and his feelings begin to change. On the day of the party, one of Sunwoo's colleagues tells her she will never attend because the couple's shameless actions disgust her. When Sunwoo gently asks if she would like to have dinner together instead, she quietly replies that she already has other plans. After work, everyone around Sunwoo seems distant, acting like they are avoiding her. Feeling alone, she stops at a small restaurant to eat by herself. Just then, she receives a shocking message. Joon-young is at Tae-oh and Dakyung's party. Without thinking, she hails a taxi and rushes to her ex-husband's house, arriving while the party is in full swing. Her sudden entrance surprises everyone, and people whisper nervously, unsure of what she will do. Dakyung appears and tries to block her, having no reason to welcome her, but Sunwoo stays calm. She shows the invitation card and ignores Dakyung's protests as she moves forward. Sunwoo pushes through the crowd and goes upstairs to Tae-oh and Dakyung's bedroom. There, she sees oversized pajamas neatly folded in the closet, branded bags, small perfumes, and cosmetics on the table. But Joon-young is nowhere to be found. Realizing this, she quietly goes back downstairs. Meanwhile, at the party, Tae-oh gives a speech, confessing his love to Dakyung using the same words Sunwoo once said to him. The family looks warm and happy, a sight Sunwoo cannot bear. She is about to leave when Dakyung calls after her, asking her to bless their family, but Sunwoo ignores her and walks away. Outside, she finds Joon-young walking calmly on his own. At the same time, music begins to play, the same song Tae-oh played when he proposed to her, and Sunwoo feels dizzy and frustrated, wanting to leave immediately. In the car, Joon-young stays quiet, but when they get home, he argues with his mother, insisting he knows what he wants better than she does. Sunwoo scolds him for lying about the party, reminding him he promised not to go. He simply goes upstairs, leaving her stunned and sad. The next day, Tae-oh sits alone in his office and looks at a phone filled with photos of Sunwoo. That night, he meets Dean Ji-chol and several female colleagues, telling them he has Byungju's support and plans to donate to the hospital, but only if Sunwoo is removed from the vice dean position. Meanwhile, unaware of Tae-oh's plan, Sunwoo and Joon-young eat dinner when a sudden crash shatters the window, leaving 2 large holes. Shocked and helpless, they watch as Tae-oh arrives, revealing that Joon-young called him for help. After fixing the window, they both realize the truth. The family still needs Tae-oh, exactly what he wants them to understand. The next day, Byungju asks Tae-oh why he used company money for the hospital donation. Tae-oh lowers his head and stammers, explaining that he planned to discuss it with him and would stop if he disagreed. The president simply tells him that if he wants to do it, he should do it properly. For the sake of family stability, Tae-oh allows Joon-young to stay at his house for a few days, and Sunwoo has no choice but to agree. During this time, Joon-young gets along well with Dakyung's daughter, Jenny, and Dakyung promises to treat him kindly. She even prepares a room for him, believing that as long as Joon-young stays with her, Tae-oh will have no reason to see Sunwoo. However, after Joon-young leaves, Sunwoo is attacked by an unknown assailant who lunges at her with intense hatred. He throws her to the ground, and she faces yet another threat from a man consumed by rage. Afterwards, Sunwoo manages to stand, and even though she is shaking, she grabs a bottle from the floor and throws it at the attacker, forcing him to run away. Once he disappears into the night, she locks the door with trembling hands and calls her colleague Yoon-gi from the hospital to treat her injuries at home. At the same time, Joon-young cannot calm down at his father's house and keeps thinking about his mother. Tae-oh, pretending to be caring, decides to drive him back home. When he walks into the house, he finds Yoon-gi treating Sunwoo's wounds. Joon-young runs to his mother in shock when he sees she is hurt. Tae-oh tries to approach her, but Yoon-gi blocks him, making Tae-oh furious and jealous. Even though he wants to stay, he has no right anymore, because they are already divorced. He leaves, anger boiling in his heart. Sunwoo, still in pain, checks the security footage from her house and sees the attacker's face clearly. She realizes it is In-ju, Hyun-seo's violent ex-boyfriend. Her neighbor confirms seeing him sneaking into the house. At that moment, everything becomes clear to Sunwoo. She understands that Tae-oh must have hired In-ju to scare her, but because In-ju still hates her, the plan turns into real violence. Sunwoo's anger flares, and she storms into Tae-oh's office to confront him. Instead of admitting anything, Tae-oh accuses her of bringing another man into her house and tries to use this as a reason to take custody of Joon-young. Meanwhile, one of Tae-oh's associates secretly informs Dakyung about the confrontation. She rushes into Sunwoo's office, demanding an explanation. Sunwoo calmly tells her to focus on her own husband and asks how much she really knows about him, reminding her that Tae-oh secretly filmed Sunwoo in the past, which Dokyung refuses to believe. Sunwoo decides she will not leave the city. She wants to protect her son and give him stability. She joins the elite women's group in Gosan, a social circle made up of powerful wives ranked by their husband's status. During a shooting practice event, she walks in wearing a striking red coat that makes her stand out in front of her rivals. She calmly announces that she wants to join the group. Even though Dokyung is present and the women could easily reject her, Dokyung surprisingly allows her entry. Later, in the bathroom, Dokyung asks why she wants to join such a group. Sunwoo quietly tells her that if Tae-oh finds out she is now part of the same circle, he will become cautious because he will feel her presence everywhere. She also reminds Dokyung that Tae-oh secretly filmed her, though Dokyung refuses to believe it. The next day, Dokyung and Tae-oh meet Sunwoo by chance at a restaurant. Sunwoo looks confident and elegant while sitting with another man. Tae-oh's eyes fill with jealousy as he stares at his ex-wife. Dokyung has to pull him back, while his colleagues mock him for acting like a lover chasing someone he divorced. Tae-oh is helpless as he watches Sunwoo leave with another man. After that, Dokyung secretly places a recorder on Tae-oh. Later, she confronts one of his staff members, who reveals that Tae-oh has a second phone filled with photos of Sunwoo, proving he never truly moved on. At that moment, Dokyung finally understands the pain Sunwoo felt years ago when she found secret photos of her on Tae-oh's phone. The betrayal now hits her personally. One day, while Sunwoo is at work, she receives a strange package containing a dead bird and a picture of her son, which terrifies her deeply. Meanwhile, Joon-young's emotional state continues to worsen because of the divorce and constant fighting. One day, he suddenly disappears, forcing both Sunwoo and Tae-oh to search for him together. They run through streets and dark alleys, calling his name. After a long search, the police finally find him. Instead of thanking his mother, Joon-young blames her for involving the police and making the situation public. On the street, Sunwoo tries to scold him and make him understand how worried she was. While she speaks, a stranger brushes past her shoulder. She turns and sees a man wearing a black coat and a cap. When she recognizes In-ju staring at her with cold anger in his eyes, she freezes on the sidewalk, unable to move. He disappears into the crowd like a shadow, leaving Sunwoo shaking with fear, unable to calm herself for a long time. At that moment, Yoon-gi arrives. While he checks her condition, Sunwoo immediately realizes that the attack must be connected to her ex-husband. The anger she saw in the attacker reminds her of everything she has been fighting against. Afterwards, she tells Tae-oh that the violent man, In-ju, threatened her and warned that their son is now in danger because of her actions. Hearing this, Tae-oh panics and rushes out to look for In-ju, threatening that if In-ju does not stop, he will expose all the ways he has been spying on Sunwoo. Meanwhile, President Byung-yu discusses Sunwoo's situation with Ji-chol. While Ji-chol shows leniency, saying nobody at the hospital can replace her skills as vice dean, Byung-ju quietly suggests that Yoon-gi might be the best candidate. Dokyung learns about the situation and becomes suspicious of Tae-oh's late-night return to help Sunwoo and their son. As a wife, she now understands the suffocating fear Sunwoo once lived with, the fear of losing control over her marriage. Tae-oh insists that he only does all this to push Sunwoo out of the hospital and tells Dokyung to ask her father if she doesn't believe him. Even after all the lies and pain, Dokyung chooses to trust him again. Later, when Ji-chol casually asks Dr. Yoon-ji if he is close to the president, Yoon-ji calmly answers that he isn't, hiding the complicated truth. That night, the president secretly meets Yoon-gi to ask about Sunwoo and Tae-oh's relationship. Yoon-ji describes Sunwoo's emotions as if he is guiding a psychological consultation, showing that he understands her deeply. Afterwards, Sunwoo realizes the vice dean position has been taken from her. She goes to Yoon-ji's house in anger, and they argue fiercely. She feels betrayed by the only person she trusted. During the argument, Yoon-gi explains that everything he does is to protect her. He needed to understand what the president plans so he could threaten him if necessary. He promises he will step down once the time is right, and says he has always wanted to shield her from the hospital's power games. But the pain is too heavy, and Sunwoo can no longer hear his explanation, so she leaves. With Hyun-seo's help, Sunwoo tracks down In-ju's hideout. When she finally confronts him, their long-standing hatred explodes, filling the room with tension. Under Sunwoo's relentless questioning, In-ju confesses that Tae-oh bribed him. He claims there is a phone somewhere that contains evidence which could expose everything. Wanting to avoid murder charges, he allows Sunwoo to leave, not realizing that she has already hidden a second recorder in the car, giving her enough evidence to send him back to prison if she chooses. Fearing that In-ju might retaliate against Hyun-seo, Sunwoo quickly makes a plan to help her escape safely. After discovering where his ex-girlfriend has gone, In-ju rushes to the train station, intending to kidnap her and threaten Tae-oh again. Tae-oh's patience snaps after being threatened repeatedly. He swears he will kill In-ju if anything happens. Yoongi witnesses the entire scene, including the moment Sunwoo leaves the station while In-ju corners Hyun-seo. She freezes in terror when she sees him kneeling on the rooftop, begging her to forgive him. His scarred face twists with desperation, though she knows deep down that he will never change. Taking advantage of a brief moment when In-ju is distracted, Hyun-seo opens the door and runs down the stairs. Just as she is about to escape, she runs into Tae-oh, who has rushed up after hearing In-ju is on the roof. Moments later, a body falls outside the station, drawing a crowd. Tragically, it is In-ju's body, leaving Sunwoo and those around her in shock. Late at night, Tae-oh returns home with cuts and scratches on his neck, trying to hide them from Dak-young. A wave of fear hits her. The next day, she sees the police trying to call him, pushing Dak-young into deeper anxiety. She remembers the previous night when Tae-oh washed his neck, now discovering bloodstains on his clothes along with the train station ticket. The sight terrifies her so much that she collapses to the floor. Dak-young demands the truth from Tae-oh. He insists that he hasn't killed anyone. He explains that he saw Sunwoo and Hyun-seo on the rooftop and believes they must have pushed In-ju, attempting to frame him. When Dak-young suggests calling the police immediately, Tae-oh refuses. He says he doesn't want the mother of his son to become a murderer. This reasoning makes Dak-young explode in anger, sparking a violent argument that leaves both of them shaken and unsure how to move forward. On the day of the incident, after Hyun-seo breaks up with her violent boyfriend on the rooftop, she hurries down the stairs, trying to put as much distance as possible between them. She hears his footsteps growing closer, forcing her to hide in a corner. Suddenly, Tae-oh appears. He grabs her and demands to know where In-ju is. A struggle immediately breaks out. Panicked, Hyun-seo blurts out that In-ju is on the rooftop. Hearing this, Tae-oh rushes upstairs. In the chaos, his wedding ring falls to the ground. Moments later, In-ju's body falls from the roof. Hyun-seo is convinced that Tae-oh pushed him, but Sunwoo insists that without witnessing the fall herself, she cannot be sure. This leaves Hyun-seo breaking down completely, crying that she has no money, no job, and no one would ever believe her over someone as powerful as Tae-oh. Sunwoo reminds her that even if Tae-oh did it, his father-in-law, the most influential man in the city, would do everything to protect his son-in-law. Overwhelmed with fear and desperation, Hyun-seo collapses to her knees, handing Sunwoo the wedding ring Tae-oh dropped, begging her to help clear her name. Following her, Hyun-seo watches as Sunwoo enters a restaurant for a scheduled meeting with Byung-yu. Bracing herself, Sunwoo confronts the president, who remains deliberately vague, refusing to admit everything he knows. He explains that the surveillance footage from the high-speed train station on the day of the incident is missing, though the police are unaware of this. He urges Sunwoo to find out who handled the footage to uncover the truth. At the same time, Tae-oh steps out of the company building after work and is suddenly surrounded by police. Hyun-seo, feeling conflicted and betrayed after seeing Sunwoo meet with Byung-ju, goes to the authorities and confesses everything she knows. Sunwoo is shocked at how quickly events escalate. Sunwoo asks the chairman if he really wants his own son-in-law to become a murderer. He replies coldly that as long as his daughter can live well, someone like Tae-oh means nothing. Sunwoo walks into the police station, presents the wedding ring Hyun-seo gave her, and testifies that Tae-oh was with her on the night of the incident. Even though Hyun-seo tries to object, Sunwoo calmly explains that after Hyun-seo saw Tae-oh go upstairs, her boyfriend fell. She emphasizes that it is only an assumption based on emotion and that the man could have jumped himself, heartbroken after the breakup. This ultimately clears Tae-oh of all suspicion. Afterwards, Sunwoo mocks Tae-oh for abandoning her and Joon-young to live a life where even his powerful in-laws will not support him, leaving him speechless. When they return home, instead of comforting him, Dak-young interrogates him like a suspect, demanding to know if he is truly innocent. Tae-oh snaps, accusing her of still having feelings for him simply because he is Joon-young's father. In frustration, he storms into his room, crying in regret for the first time, marking the beginning of his fading feelings for Dak-young. The next day, Sun-woo goes to pick up Hyun-seo from the police station. The case of the violent boyfriend's death is officially closed based on the autopsy and Hyun-seo's testimony. She cannot fully accept it, but Sun-woo reassures her not to feel guilty, reminding her that the man chose to end his own life. In a moment of honesty, Hyun-seo confesses that she truly worried about Sun-woo all along. She explains that she stayed with her abusive boyfriend for so long because he was pathetic and helpless, and without her, he had nothing at all, revealing the complicated mix of fear, loyalty, and survival that kept her trapped for so long. At Joon-young's school, rumors spread that Sun-woo is the murderer of In-gyu. This weighs heavily on Joon-young, who can no longer lift his head in class. Soon, he gets into a fight with another student. The next day, Sun-woo rushes to the local shooting club, confronting the woman responsible for spreading the fake news. She asks sharply if the woman is really so curious about her family that she would gossip in front of her son. The woman only smiles, unbothered. Sun-woo warns her firmly to think carefully about whom she is provoking, reminding her that her husband has political ambitions and that a single scandal could destroy her future. Sun-woo also warns that if her son hears another rumor like this at school, she will not allow them to live peacefully. At that moment, Dak-young seizes the opportunity to approach Joon-young directly. She speaks gently, telling him that his mother is suffering from depression, and suggests that if he wants to live with his father peacefully, her mother could leave the city freely without worrying about him. Her words touch Joon-young, and he agrees. When Sun-woo comes home, she finds Tae-oh packing luggage with Joon-young. He explains that her son asked to move in with him. Joon-young quietly tells his mother that her life has become so chaotic that perhaps living with his father would make things easier for her. Without another word, he picks up his bags and leaves, leaving Sun-woo collapsed on the roadside, crying alone as the car disappears into the distance. A few weeks later, while out shopping, Sun-woo unexpectedly sees Joon-young with Dak-young. Dak-young helps him choose clothes while Tae-oh stands nearby, pushing their new baby in a stroller. They all appear close and happy, Joon-young smiling, Dak-young affectionate, and the family warm and complete. Before they notice her, Sun-woo quietly turns and walks away, feeling clearly that her son is living well in that house. Yet in her heart, she mourns the loss of the most precious part of her life. Back at home, she begins packing her own luggage, deciding that leaving the city is the only way to find peace after losing so much. Meanwhile, Tae-oh goes drinking at a bar, where he meets a neighbor who tells him that Sun-woo plans to leave town. Shocked by the news, he rushes to her house, only to find her watching an old wedding video of the two of them, making it obvious that neither has truly forgotten the past. In a sudden surge of emotion, Tae-oh impulsively reaches for her, sparking a physical struggle filled with both resentment and longing, which is unfortunately witnessed by Joon-young. Remembering the time his father almost killed his mother, he is overwhelmed by trauma and confusion and runs to a nearby bar to calm himself. Afterwards, Tae-oh and Sun-woo agree never to see each other again. Fate intervenes the next morning when they both receive an urgent call. Joon-young has not only stolen again, but has also injured a classmate. Both parents rush to the school. When they confront him, he responds bitterly, saying that it is his own mistake and points out that adults make mistakes all the time. So why can't he? Sun-woo and Tae-oh are speechless and shocked. Sun-woo visits the mother of the injured child to apologize for Joon-young's actions, but her mother refuses to listen, insisting on expelling him and revealing that this isn't the first time he has stolen. Later, when Sun-woo returns home, she discovers even more stolen items hidden in her son's room, which makes her heart ache. She remembers the psychologist explaining how children often act out when carrying trauma. At the same time, she finds messages from Dak-young on Tae-oh's hidden phone and tells him to attend the parent-teacher meeting the next morning, realizing that the two adults are forced to confront each other again because of their son. She feels as if she is desperately defending a marriage that has already fallen apart. Later, in the hospital room, Sun-woo brings Joon-young to apologize again, but he refuses, leaving her with no choice but to step forward herself. She kneels at the bedside of the injured classmate and pleads for forgiveness. Watching his mother humiliate herself breaks Joon-young's heart. The parents remain unmoved. Just as the tension reaches its peak, Dak-young arrives, instantly shifting the atmosphere with her calm presence. She hands the parents a box of cake and speaks gently, in the manner of a perfect, considerate stepmother who knows exactly how to win people over. In contrast to Dakyung's warmth, Sunwoo feels powerless and humiliated in her own son's eyes. Seeing how much his mother suffers, Joon-young recalls Dakyung's words that perhaps the best thing for her is to leave the city, and he sends her a message urging her to do so. After reading his text, Sunwoo collapses, barely able to stand. Before leaving, she meets Tae-oh one more time and asks him to take care of their son. She then walks toward the deep sea. Meanwhile, Dr. Yoongi arrives at the beach and finds her clothes abandoned in the sand. Calling her name, he spots her struggling in the waves. He immediately dives in, swims toward her, and finally reaches her. He pulls her to the shore, patting her back and calling her name until she slowly regains consciousness. As she wakes, she breaks down in tears in his arms. From a distance, Tae-oh watches the scene unfold, feeling a storm of fear and relief. After seeing her alive, he turns away silently and walks home in a daze. Later, at home, Dakyung tells Tae-oh that dinner is ready. While the family eats together, Dakyung hears her daughter cry and rushes to the room. She finds her daughter crying beside Joon-young. Assuming Joon-young is responsible, she scolds him loudly. Joon-young insists he did nothing, but Dakyung continues blaming him, angering him, and a heated argument starts. Tae-oh enters at that moment, demanding silence, but tensions remain high. In a surge of frustration, he slaps Joon-young, leaving him shocked and heartbroken, and storms out in fury. In the hospital, Sunwoo, lying in her bed, suddenly awakens as if she hears her son calling, sensing the invisible bond between mother and child. As soon as she hears Joon-young crying over the phone, she realizes he wants her to pick him up. Forgetting all her weakness and hesitation, she rushes to Tae-oh and Dakyung's house. When the doorbell rings, the housekeeper immediately informs Chairman Byung-gyu of her arrival. Inside, Dakyung stubbornly refuses to open the door. When Sunwoo calls for Joon-young, Dakyung tries to block him, fully aware that her stepson is her last bargaining chip to control Tae-oh. At that moment, Joon-young turns away and runs straight into his mother's arms, hugging her tightly. Just as they are about to leave, Dakyung rushes out in desperation. Sunwoo, calm and unwavering, tells her that nothing can truly make a man stay. She explains that a marriage can be shaken and shattered by the smallest things, and the only choice is to stay far away from a selfish man who cannot value love. Leaving Dakyung momentarily speechless, Sunwoo takes Dakyung to her home. Pulling out matching pajamas and perfume, she points out that Tae-oh only sees Dakyung as her replacement. When Dakyung argues that Sunwoo bought identical items just to sabotage their marriage, showing she truly does not understand her husband, Sunwoo pulls her closer and shows her a photo of herself from 10 years ago, wearing the same outfit. She explains that a man like Tae-oh is instinctively attracted to women like them, and warns that when her daughter grows up, she might find herself in the same vulnerable position, shattering her confidence and forcing her to retreat. Meanwhile, Tae-oh returns to his company to find his subordinates packing his belongings, a clear signal that he is being removed under Byung-gyu's orders. Panicked, he rushes home, only to be met with a harsh slap from his father-in-law. When he looks to Dakyung for support, she completely ignores him. He sits there broken when suddenly Sunwoo arrives in her car. In a final act of frustration, he throws a brick at her car, unable to comprehend what she said to Dakyung. Sunwoo drives away silently, leaving him to face the consequences. Before leaving, she tosses him 200 yuan as a token allowance, which he picks up helplessly, marking the start of the most tragic days of his life. Without Tae-oh's interference, Sunwoo finally begins a peaceful life with her son. This peace is briefly interrupted when she returns from work one day to find her son missing, a note on the sofa revealing that Tae-oh has taken him. To keep the situation calm, she reluctantly agrees to meet him for dinner. At the restaurant, Tae-oh orders an extravagant meal, eating shamelessly with a satisfied face, while Joon-young sits beside him, disgusted by his father's behavior. Even Sunwoo cannot help but advise him to become a decent man for their child's sake, and to never appear in front of them again. Tae-oh, stripped of his last chance to rely on her, stumbles toward the roadside in desperation, nearly into the path of a large truck that stops just in time. In that instant, both Sunwoo and Tae-oh are overwhelmed by a mix of sorrow, hatred, and lingering love, realizing they are both enemies and comrades in the tangled world of marriage. Their son witnesses the scene, unable to comprehend the complicated adult emotions, and runs away, never to return for a while. Tae-oh eventually finds a normal job, while Sunwoo returns to her hospital. They continue their lives separately, choosing not to reunite but remaining in the city, patiently waiting for their son. 1 year later, one morning, while Sunwoo is eating breakfast, the door suddenly opens. Joon-young arrives, marking the end of the story.